last time anyone heard from him was a static-filled voicemail at 4:02 a.m. The walls still smelled like mothballs and linseed oil, like they were holding their breath for someone else's return. I don't know why I agreed to go back there. Alone, maybe because the house was legally mine now, or maybe because some part of me hoped walking through her silence might explain why. I'd started hearing things I hadn't said yet. I parked in the driveway just after noon, late enough that the shadows had already shifted under the porch swing. The key still worked. I had to jiggle it like she used to. That motion, that exact rhythm of resistance and surrender, made something in my chest twist. Not pain exactly, but a pressure behind the ribs, like I was being warned. Inside, nothing had changed. Her slippers still pointed toward the hallway, and the blanket still draped over the recliner she hadn't sat in since the stroke. I was supposed to be there for one reason: to clear out the house before the sale. No one had lived there in 3 years, but it didn't feel empty. It felt paused, like a tape waiting for someone to hit play. I moved room by room with a black contractor bag and a pair of gloves, tossing expired condiments, crumbling photo albums, things I hadn't had the courage to throw out while she was alive. But I kept avoiding the den. That room always felt warmer than the rest of the house, and not in a comforting way, more like it remembered things. The answering machine was still on the corner table, half covered by an old Reader's Digest and a coaster that stuck to my hand when I lifted it. Red light blinking. That confused me. The power had been cut long ago. I'd called the utility company myself when the bills stopped, but the machine still blinked. One message: I pressed play. Static, hissing, heavy like a storm, too close to pick up, like the breath of something trying to imitate speech. Then very faintly a sound like my name. Not my name exactly, but a version of it, drawn out, soft, almost apologetic. The tape ended with a click, but I swear it left something behind, something like the feeling of being tapped on the shoulder while looking in a mirror. I deleted it without listening again. That night I stayed in the guest room, the one with the yellow curtains and the peeling map of Europe pinned above the dresser. I hadn't brought much, just a duffel bag, some food, and my phone, which I turned off after it buzzed for the third time from an unlisted number. I lay in bed thinking about the machine, trying to remember the last time I'd heard her voice on it. She used to record cheerful greetings, change them for the seasons, even sign off with love. But when I started calling less, the messages grew shorter. By the end it was just leave a message. And even that sounded tired. I think I was waiting for something. Not a ghost, she didn't believe in those, but a memory, maybe something sharp enough to pull me back into the right shape. I fell asleep with the window open. Around 4 a.m. I woke up gasping. Not because of a nightmare, but because I thought I heard the answering machine click on, the sound it used to make when it started recording, soft, mechanical. Final. I told myself it was the wind. I told myself the house was creaking, or my brain was misfiring in that half-sleep state where dreams and reality braid together. But when I walked down the hall in the dark and stood in the doorway of the den, the red light was blinking again. One new message. I didn't play it. I went back to bed and didn't sleep the next day. I called the utility company to ask if there'd been a mistake. They said power had been disconnected 3 years ago. I asked if someone could have reconnected it remotely. The man on the line chuckled like I was confused and told me flatly, that house isn't pulling any power. I checked the outlet. The machine wasn't plugged in. I wrapped it in a towel and put it in the garage. That should have been the end of it. But around 4 a.m. the next morning, my phone rang. No caller ID. When I answered, all I heard was static. Long, slow static. Then a voice, not hers but close, whispered a date: March 11th. That was the day she died. That was also the last day I called and didn't leave a message. I had been too busy. I remember staring at the blinking machine from the safety of my car, wondering what I'd even say. Sorry, I missed your birthday. Oh, visit soon. It didn't feel honest, so I didn't speak. I let it ring. I let it die. And now it was speaking back. I stayed up the next night with the lights on. I kept the phone next to me, screen down. Around 402, and the house groaned. That's the only word I have for it. Like it shifted its weight. Like something under the floorboards was stretching. I walked the rooms again, every doorknob cold, every window locked, every hallway somehow narrower than I remembered when I reached the garage. The towel was unfolded, and the answering machine sat bare atop the laundry dryer, blinking, no red light, just blinking, like it was thinking, like it wanted me to say something. I told myself again that it wasn't possible, that I was tired grieving. Delirious, I packed it into my car and drove to the landfill. I tossed it in with broken chairs and rotted wood and waited until I saw the compactor crush it. I drove back to the house and locked the door. That night I dreamed of a voicemail, not one I received, one I left. I was crying. I didn't know why. I kept saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was the last one." And then silence, but not silence like peace silence. Like a drawer closing. When I woke up, the time on the stove blinked 402. The stove had no power. I didn't leave the house after that. I kept trying to finish clearing things, but every object started feeling wrong in my hands, familiar but rearranged. A photo album, missing the faces. A clock that ticked louder. When I looked at it, I found a letter in her handwriting tucked behind a drawer. No stamp, just my name. Inside was a grocery list. Nothing else, but the items were the same ones I'd bought the week she died: milk, bread, instant coffee, batteries. I hadn't told anyone what I bought. I hadn't even kept the receipt. I think that was when I realized I wasn't alone in the house. Not in the haunted sense, but in the sense that something was watching how I remembered, something that was sifting through the timeline and showing me what I'd missed. The worst part, I started to feel comforted by it. Like if I stayed still long enough, the house would forgive me. Like if I listened closely, I could go back. But 402 kept coming, always 402. Noise wasn't just on machines now, it was in the plumbing and the walls, in the pitch between the wind and the silence. A hissing voice that didn't need speakers. I stopped answering my phone. I stopped turning it on. But on the sixth night it rang. Again. This time it left a voicemail, static, then a phrase I hadn't heard since childhood. "You didn't mean it." She used to say that when I broke things, when I lied, when I cried too hard to explain myself. "You didn't mean it." I didn't mean to forget her birthday. I didn't mean to let the voicemail ring out. I didn't mean to turn away when the nurse handed me the bag of her things. But intention doesn't matter to machines, only input and result. I started talking to the house. At first to feel less alone, then because I realized it was listening. I'd say, "I remember the time you made soup during the blackout," and the lights would flicker. I'd say, "I'm sorry, I didn't come back sooner," and the hallway would grow warmer just briefly, like breath. I stayed for 2 weeks, then 3, then I stopped counting. Every time I packed to leave, something small would vanish: a car key, my wallet, a single shoe, only to reappear in the den next to the table where the answering machine used to sit. The house wasn't keeping me prisoner. It just didn't want me to forget. The last night I remember clearly was the night I left a message of my own. I found an old tape recorder in the hall closet. I recorded myself speaking as calmly as I could. I said I missed her. I said I was sorry for the things I never said. I said I understood now why the machine never needed power, it only needed guilt. I placed the recorder where the machine once was and pressed play. I sat in the recliner. I closed my eyes and I listened. The tape crackled, my voice echoed. Then the power in the house surged. The old bulbs turned orange. The radio in the kitchen hummed a station that hadn't broadcast in decades. And from somewhere behind the walls, I heard another version of my voice answer back. Not mimic, not playback answer. It said, "You waited too long." I got in my car before sunrise. I drove until the gaslight came on. I checked into a roadside motel and tried to sleep, but I kept dreaming of the tape playing itself back and forth, caught in a loop of apology. The next morning I turned on my phone. I had one new voicemail, 402 AM, static, then nothing, then a breath, then a click that was 2 months ago. I haven't gone back. I still see the red light blinking behind my eyes. When I close them, I still smell mothballs and linseed oil. When I walk past certain houses, I still hear static at exactly 402 AM, whether my phone is off or not. I think the message wasn't meant to scare me. I think it was meant to remind me machines don't forgive. They remember exactly what you gave them. And somewhere in the empty airwaves of that dead house, the last thing I never said is still playing, still waiting, still blinking. The phone was under her pillow like it had been waiting to be found, screen cold battery, dead but still humming in that quiet way old electronics do. When they're full of something they were never meant to hold, I didn't turn it on right away. I held it like I was remembering the shape of her hand. Then I charged it, not expecting it to start, not really expecting anything anymore. And when it did, the screen flickered like an eyelid trying to open in a dream. And there it was, her messages, her photos, her breathing still preserved in the dust. That's what they don't tell you. The dead don't leave silence behind. They leave a residue like moisture on glass. And sometimes if you press your ear close enough, it talks back. She died on a Thursday. Heart just stopped. No trauma, no warning, just a hollow space in the middle of a normal day. I'd gone to work that morning thinking about groceries, the leaking faucet, stupid things like that. I left her sitting on the couch watching one of those documentaries about shipwrecks or lost time or something else that doesn't end cleanly. When I came back, she was still there, just still, like she'd paused herself mid-thought and never remembered to resume. I don't remember much about the days after they passed through me like water. I heard voices, I nodded at things. I didn't cry until I found her toothbrush dry and untouched a week later. But this is not a story about grief, not really. It's about what comes after, or what never left. It started with the noise, a tone high and soft like a hearing test you're not sure is real. I'd hear it in the hallway, standing between the bathroom and the bedroom. Always at 3:17 in the morning, I looked for source's phone. Chargers, routers, anything, but it came from nowhere. Just a steady pulse, barely audible, like something trying to sync with my body without me knowing. Then the text showed up. That old phone, the one I found under her pillow, had rebooted itself again while I was out walking. I hadn't even charged it. The screen was on bright, unsettlingly warm. I opened it, and there it was. One unsent message in her drafts folder. I knew the rhythm of her typing, the way she'd write and delete, and delete, and this wasn't hers. It didn't sound like her. It sounded flat, a transcript, almost like it was repeating something it had overheard. Stop knocking, I said. The door isn't real. You have to come through the wall. That was all. No contact listed, no date stamp, just sitting there as if waiting for me to see it. I deleted it thinking, maybe I'd made it, maybe I was still half asleep, maybe I was unraveling a little under the weight of absence. But the next night it was back. Same phrasing, same file, and that time I noticed the wallpaper had changed. It used to be a picture of us from 2016. Her hair wet, laughing, holding a plastic cup in front of our first apartment. But the phone now showed a blurry image of the living room, our living room, only not quite right. The couch had shifted a few feet and the lamp wasn't plugged in. But the worst part was the shadow in the corner, long and slumped, as if something had been standing there for too long just outside the frame of where reality keeps its shape. I took a screenshot, but the moment I pressed the buttons, the phone shut down completely, wouldn't turn back on for hours. I brought it to a technician the next day. He said the battery was perfectly healthy and that it should be functioning fine. I didn't tell him about the text. I didn't tell anyone because by then I'd started dreaming again. And I hadn't dreamed since she died. The dreams were always of the apartment, but not how. It is how it was, back when we still had those green curtains and the coffee table was scratched from moving day. Except everything was darker, muted, like it had been photocopied from memory instead of remembered properly. And in every dream, I'd walk through the hallway and she'd be there standing just outside the bathroom, mouth open, not speaking, but mouthing something like she was trying to tell me a password or a warning. And behind her the bathroom would hum with that same tone, that same 317 pulse that now lived somewhere in the walls of this place. The worst part wasn't the dreams, it was waking up and realizing the door to the bathroom had moved again, only a few inches, but enough to make me feel like the house was editing itself around me, started filming things, just little clips on my phone, the hallway, the bathroom. Her old phone when it let me. I wanted to prove to myself that things stayed where they were. that I wasn't cracking open, but the recordings would never match up. In one, the bathroom mirror reflected the hallway behind me. In another, it showed nothing at all, just blank light. And once the reflection looked back too slowly, not dramatically, just slightly delayed like it hadn't expected to be watched. I threw out the mirror the next morning, put it in the alley, but that night it was back, hanging perfectly straight, clean, as if it had never left. I asked the landlord if he'd replaced anything recently. He just looked confused and said, "You're the only one who lives there now, right?" I didn't like the way he said now. I stopped going out. The idea of the outside world felt dishonest, like it was pretending nothing had changed. I kept noticing that people on the street never met my eyes. I'd see the same bus drive past 4 times in an hour, same driver, same empty seats. Even the birds on the wire outside my window didn't move for 2 days. I left food out on the kitchen table and it didn't rot. I unplugged the fridge and it still hummed. I threw away her phone and it was back under my pillow the next morning. Only this time it was turned on and the message had changed it. Now read, "The furniture remembers, stop rearranging it." There was no cursor blinking, no trace of when it had been written. I kept the phone on my desk after that, screen down, battery out, like a trap. But I knew it was still writing, still listening. I started to feel watched, not from the outside, but from behind my thoughts. Like I'd think of her voice and then hear it from another room, not speaking, just breathing soft, regular, not hers, not mine. Just enough to make me pause. And then came the soft cliff of realization that the layout had always been wrong. I dug out the floor plan from when we bought the place and compared it to how things stood. The hallway used to end at the laundry room. Now it looped slightly, just enough that if you walked too long, you ended up back at the same painting, but from the wrong angle. The doors had too much air behind them. The light switches didn't do what they used to. I tried sleeping in different rooms. The sound followed. I played music, the high tones slid between notes. I even tried staying up all night to watch the clock tick past 317, but I always blacked out for exactly 1 minute and woke up with the phone screen lit again. Same message, slightly altered. Sometimes it said, "You're not supposed to stay." Other times, "Don't answer the second knock." Once, "The bed isn't where you think it is," and it wasn't. He measured it one morning and found it had shifted 5 inches left. Drag marks on the floor, but no memory of moving it. I thought of calling someone, a friend, a doctor, but the idea of speaking these things aloud felt like feeding them, making them stronger. I started writing instead, leaving myself notes which would disappear. Not moved, just gone. The only place they ever resurfaced was on her phone, typed out, filed under drafts. In my handwriting though, I'd never touched the keyboard. One read, "You're not alone. You're not with anyone either." Another, "She never made it to the couch. Stop pretending she did." And the worst one, "Check the footage. You were already sitting there when you came in." I did check all the old recordings I'd made, frame by frame. And in one, the first one I ever took of the hallway, I saw me standing at the far end, just out of frame, watching, and the reflection in the mirror had never been mine. It had always been facing inward. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how long it's been. The clocks all say different things now. The light outside never changes. The birds are frozen on the wire. I've stopped eating. I don't get hungry. I think the house is teaching me to stay still. Last night I found a new message on her phone, not in the drafts in a thread sent, but there's no signal, no SIM card, no service of any kind. Just this single message delivered. At 3:17 a.m., it said, "He knows now, reset the hallway." There was no contact listed, no app name, just a blank bubble like the phone had written it to itself. I haven't moved since I'd been sitting in the same spot on the couch where I found her. I think I always have been. I don't remember unlocking the door that day. I don't remember coming in. I remember her show playing. I remember thinking the faucet still needed fixing. But when I blink now, I see the hallway again, longer than it should be. I see myself at the end of it, a little closer each time. And I think the unsent message wasn't for me. It was from me. Because the newest one just appeared a few minutes ago, even though the phone is off, the battery's out. And I swear I haven't touched a thing, it says. He's almost back, keep him distracted. And beneath that, a photo, blurry, distant, time-stamped, 2 minutes into the future. It shows me sitting here, smiling, holding the phone, and the mirror that shouldn't be there, the reflection finally catches up, and it isn't smiling at all.